Hey, everybody, it's the waitingfornextyear.com podcast. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Andrew is here. We had Sunday off thanks to the Browns playing on Thursday and winning on Thursday. Now that the game is over, was that game a must win, Andrew? Because it kind of felt like it in a lot of ways.
It was a must win. Like, not in terms of to make the playoffs. Like, I don't care about that stat of what percentage of teams make the playoffs if 0-2 versus 1-1. Like, I'm not talking about that, but just for the morale of the team and for not thinking everything is just a complete, to use the overused term, dumpster fire already.
Mm-hmm.
I think they had to beat the Bengals. Like, I really do. Like, you can't go out and get killed the way they did in week one and then lose to the Bengals and not have it all fall apart. I think we would have seen, a lot of bad things start happening. And um, I mean, who knows how hot Stefanski's seat would have gotten after two games with Jimmy and with the fans. Like, it would have been bad. So like I said, it wasn't a must win in terms of the overall record or anything like that, but it was a must win for the peace of mind of the fans, just to take a deep breath after week one and realize, like, okay, yes, it's a process, yes, there's things that we can work on and get better at, but like, it's not all up in flames right now.
When I don't know if you were scoreboard watching it all today or you checked out what happened around the league, but Baltimore obliterated Houston 33-16. I
Yeah.
think that the Browns, there was a lot going on in that opening week. The Browns didn't have a preseason. They were installing a new offense. They only had 6 weeks as a team with a brand new head coach. And Baltimore is just that damn good. Baltimore has that many built-in advantages that they crush Deshaun Watson and Houston. And I'm not the biggest Houston, like, I don't believe that much in them. I think the trades that they've made are really bad, but Deshaun
Sure.
Watson, I think, is a very solid quarterback with the potential to be very good. And they just got hammered.
Yeah, I think Houston is, they're not a Super Bowl contender or anything like that, but they're a contender to win their division. They're a contender to make the playoffs. Like, that's should be a decent football team. Like, that's a regular NFL football team. And so it does make you feel a little bit better about the Browns that, like, hey, guess what? That Baltimore team is pretty freaking good. And you and I, we talked a little bit, we talked on a podcast leading up to that Baltimore game, and neither of us expected the Browns to win that game, but we had
No.
talked about how the Browns played most teams close and tough last year. And I think we were kind of expecting that maybe they could, be in the first week. You don't know what's going to happen. Like, maybe they'll be able to, like, hang in there and make it a close game or whatever. I was certainly frustrated that they weren't competitive in that game and they let it really slip away. Like, I felt good about them in the first half. I really did. I felt like, yeah, they were making some mistakes, but I didn't feel like this was not competitive until the Baltimore drive to score before the half. Like, that kind of, like, was maybe the turning point then. And then the second half, they weren't competitive at all. And so all of that was really disappointing. So when they got just crushed by Baltimore, it was a little bit like, ooh, I don't know. Like,
So here's the question. Now that the Browns did what they did on Thursday Night Football and they ran the ball 35 times, how much closer would the Baltimore game have been if they had committed to the run? They still wouldn't have won that game, I don't think. I mean, let's be honest. But
sure.
do you think Stefanski maybe learned something about who his team is and what they are and what he needs to do to win as they develop the ability to pass as much as he seems to want to?
Yeah, I think that what you saw was maybe a little bit of, that first game. I think the play calling just in general got away from him. I mean, including the famous or infamous fake punt, right off the bat on the first possession or first drive of the game. Like, there was a lot of questionable and head scratching decisions. And I think maybe that was his first taste of realizing, like, it's tough to call plays when you're also the head coach. You have all the responsibilities of everything going on. Oh, yeah. And you have to call the plays and get them in on time. And I just think things got away from him a little bit. Now, I'm not willing to say just because they were able to find success against the Bengals, who I don't think are a particularly good defense as constituted. I'm not willing to sit here and say that he fixed everything, but I think he showed a lot of progress from game one to game two, and that's the stuff that's important, is just to keep making that progress. That, I don't want to compare everything to Freddie Kitchens, of course, but in terms of Freddie, it was the team never seemed to change at all, right? Like week to week, the same mistakes were being made. The lack of discipline was evident week in and week out. They continued to be late getting the plays called in. They continued to have guys lining up wrong, and all these compounding problems that didn't seem to get fixed. And I really feel like with the Browns, like their problems against Baltimore were not those kind of problems. It wasn't that they weren't getting the plays called in. It wasn't stupid penalties. Like if you remember going back to last year, that first game against Tennessee, they had an entire drive in which I think the defense gave up 80 yards in penalties
They were just
one
totally
drive.
undisciplined and from the penalty standpoint.
And that's not what the problem was this year. And the problem wasn't just that Baltimore was better. The Browns were, quite frankly, not ready, but they have a lot of reasons to not be ready. So all I'm looking for is just getting better, and I want to see things get cleaned up. And we saw that happen from week one to week two, and in a short week, nonetheless, too. Like, I think they deserve a lot of credit to turn around and put that game behind them that fast, and to have to turn around and play a Thursday night game. They were focused. They were on point. They were on message. I love what these players are saying to the media. I love watching these things. They have taken on the identity of their coach. They are saying and using the same terminology that the coach uses when speaking to the media. And that means they're bought in. Like I don't know how this is all going to work out, but for right now, they're buying into, Stefanski's program, and they're giving it a shot. And we're just seeing them get, they improved from this week. They're going to play another very beatable team next week. I don't know how the Washington game ended up, but I watched the first half of that game, and that Washington team looks bad.
Yeah. So here's the thing. After game one, I did say that, and I think a lot of people read a lot more into what the statement, the honeymoon is over, than what I meant when I wrote about it this week. I just meant like, this is the marriage now. This is the real deal.
Right.
The scores count. I didn't mean like this guy's doomed or get him on the hot seat. But Kevin Stefanski, I think, I hope he learned something in that opening week game. How small the margin for error is, how quickly things can get off the rails. And I was very serious about comparing him to Mangini, not because I didn't like the Mangini experience. I really didn't. But if you couldn't watch his reign with the Browns and not see some positives into how he game planned and how he never was married to a system and was like system over progress, because we've seen so many coaches, whether it was Holmgren and Shermer, just being addicted to the West Coast, just West Coast, West Coast, West Coast, West Coast. And it's like, do what your players are good at. And I think that, not to say that we could draw that many conclusions from Stefanski in 1 week against Baltimore, his first game with all the built-in excuses, but at the same time, I do think I saw something in game two where he recognized exactly the key to beating a rookie quarterback, even a very talented with lots of potential rookie quarterback, was to just run the heck out of the ball. And he did that. 22 rushes for Chubb, 10 for Hunt. He kept Baker out of trouble. That's how you support a guy. That's how you show trust in a guy. And I'll be interested to see, now that there's 2 games of tape on Washington, now that they're, as the season moves along, that's what I'm looking for from Stefanski, is slight variations to feel like he's catering his plan to the opponent. And I felt like he really missed the bar on in week 1 against Baltimore, and it got completely off the rails. I think the not margin for error, the margin of loss, I think that means something. I think it means something. Sure. And I expect Stefanski not to hit that low point he did against Baltimore again this season.
Yeah. I really like, one thing I liked that Stefanski said after this game was he was asked the question about, striking that run pass balance. And he said, a lot of people think that run pass balance means having the same number of run plays and the same number of pass plays in a game. And he said, that's not what it means to me. To me, it means being equally capable of running the football and passing the football. And depending on what the teams are showing us and what their strengths are, we want to be able to attack them accordingly or appropriately. And I love that answer. It doesn't have to be, you got to look at that score sheet and say, man, we're passing the ball more than we're running per se, or that we're running more than we're passing. But like, you have to play to a team's strength. And that's where that Baltimore game got away from them, is they really played into Baltimore's hands and into their strengths in the way they attacked that game from an offensive standpoint. And with Cincinnati, they seemed to figure out a little bit better how they wanted to attack and go at them. But I don't think that you'll see them rush for 200 yards against every team necessarily. That's just what they felt they needed to do against the Bengals. And I'd love to be able to run the ball like that week in and week out, but first of all, it's very hard to do, but then you become predictable as well. Because just like the Browns have 2 games of tape on Washington, well, Washington has 2 games of tape on the Browns now as well. So, the more the Browns play, the more teams are going to figure out what he likes to do. And that's where you really find out, it's that stereotypical, you make your first adjustment and then the league adjusts to you, and it's whether or not you can make that second adjustment. And, we'll find out as this season goes on, but I do think it's important that we're seeing him make that first adjustment anyways. And, to your point, like that's what we need in terms of building an identity for this offense and for this football team.
So Washington is another game that let's be honest, the Browns should win.
For sure.
Arizona got out to a real fast start. They led after the first quarter 14-0. They led at the half 20-0, and they just really never looked back. They gave up. Washington scored 12 in the fourth quarter to put 15 on the board, but 12 fourth quarter points. I mean, it's like we all know that the Cincinnati game wasn't a 5-point game. The Browns, those late touchdowns are just murder for gamblers, really.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll see what the Browns plan to do, but the idea, as much as I like Haskins and McLaurin because of their Ohio State credentials, they're not great NFL players, at least not yet. McLaurin has a chance, but Haskins almost certainly is not.
For sure. Haskins, he looked a little rough today in the first half. What I saw, I didn't see. Like I said, I didn't see. I had other things I had to do. I wasn't able to see the second half, but certainly in the first half, Haskins was looking a little rough. McLaurin looked great. I think he looks really good to me. I think he's
7 catches for 125 yards.
Yeah, and a couple some really nice catches, and he just he was always a guy that I really liked at Ohio State as well. So that doesn't surprise me. But I think the Browns are a more talented football team than Washington, and I think they should win this football game. Now, I don't know what's going to happen now, and obviously there's a lot to be concerned with the Browns. Like, I'm still terrified of this Browns secondary, and especially like you look at Joe Burrow. They talked about how much pressure he was under that game and how much pressure the Browns were able to generate. We expect that with the Browns defensive line. Like, that's the strength of that defense. We expect there to be a lot of pressure, but despite all that pressure, he still completed. I don't know what his completion percentage was, Burrow, but he still threw all over the Browns, completed well over 50%, I believe.
37 for 61, 316 yards, 3 TDs. And a 23-yard long. So if there's one criticism, it's he was dinking and dunking. But
right. But
37 receptions, 37 completions is nice.
Yeah, and I think that and when you saw an established quarterback like Lamar, like against Baltimore, he was toying with that defense. Like, they had whatever they wanted passing the football. Lamar Jackson is not per se known as the best passing quarterback in the league, but he's obviously upper tier, and he just picked them apart. And so that's my biggest concern is, can the Browns do enough on defense, even against, your mediocre quarterbacks, to slow them down enough? It's great that Joe Burrow, was a rookie and they got a lot of pressure on him, but they still put up yardage. They put up a lot of points on this defense. So those are the things that concern me. And, I obviously, having personally as a huge Dwayne Haskins fan, like, obviously, like, I have a lot of respect for him. And if the Browns aren't careful, they could be the kind of defense that can help him sort of get right, and so that's my concern for this game.
Can the Browns change their game plan defensively while they try and get healthy to minimize the amount of tight ends that are just absolutely killing them? These are the questions.
That's the question for Joe Woods and his staff. Obviously, I think I saw Mac Wilson is practicing this week, I believe. So, if by some chance, I don't know if they're thinking he can play yet, or if this is just him getting, dipping his toes in the water. But having him back would certainly help a lot there. Getting Kevin Johnson back at some point. I don't know if he's practicing yet this week, but the sooner we can get him back, and Greedy, like, I don't know how good Greedy is going to be, but he's certainly a starting caliber, corner that can go opposite Denzel. So those are some things that I'm curious to see. That obviously those will help, but really, like you said, the issue is, can they figure something out differently with the defense? Like, it's great that they can get pressure with that defensive line, but if that pressure isn't resulting in sacks, it seems like the quarterbacks are able to find somebody open routinely against this defense, and that's the scary thing. Like, it's great to get pressure, but if that pressure isn't a sack, it tends to be a completion right now, it feels like, and that's tough.
And especially, I hate to keep harping on it, but tight ends, man, the amount of tight ends that just murder the Browns. That's like, I know, I was going to say, it's like decades.
Yeah, like, that's been the Browns' Achilles heel on defense for forever. It feels like since they came back, almost, it seems like.
Heath Miller. Yeah, I mean, we could just name all the AFC North tight ends, that just Todd Heap. The names are endless.
Yeah, and the Browns just, for whatever reason, always seem susceptible. It's funny because, like, me and a buddy, we do a power play fantasy league where every week you pick a lineup, but you can only use any player once, for the entire year. And, like, almost every week we pick the tight end that's playing against the Browns. Like, if you need a tight end for fantasy, like, pick the guy that's playing against the Browns, because he's probably going to get a touchdown. And that, I hate how much that strategy tends to work for us, but it does. And I don't know, like, just once it would be nice to have a defense that's able to recognize that, but hasn't happened yet.
Well, and I keep harping on it. The Browns continue to not invest in middle linebacker. They, even when they do find somebody like Joe Schobert, who, he's a B+. He's never going to be an A+, but they let that guy walk. They find reasons to spend money on so many other positions, but they've consistently allowed guys to just walk from that position and failed to identify top talent to come in and play that position. And that, no offense to Mac Wilson, but I think he's going to be another placeholder. He might even be a very solid placeholder, but he doesn't project to be I fill in the blank, man. I can't even name somebody.
Yeah, I think like the Schobert thing is so hard because it's like, on the one hand, I certainly don't think he's worth the money that he got. But like, and I always kind of felt like if the Browns paid him, like they'd be overpaying for that position. But it's like, but at the same time, they're sitting there with the most cap space in the league, and they're playing like they have nobody at linebacker that can play. And so it's kind of like, well, why not just sign him to a two-year deal or a 3-year deal? Like, who cares? Use up some of that cap space now. You can always cut him if you decide you don't want, if you decide that you don't want to pay him at a certain point. If you need that money allocated for signing some of these other guys to extensions, so be it. Like in the NFL, you're not hamstrung by bad contracts the way you are like in the NBA. It's not like the NBA where you sit there and you sign a guy to a bad deal, and all of a sudden 2 years later you're stuck with him. That's not, it doesn't really happen in football that way.
Yeah, and it was essentially a really expensive 2-year deal that he got from Jacksonville.
Yeah.
It's an expensive deal. 5 years, 53 million, $12 million signing bonus, guaranteed 21 million at signing. So ideally it's a 3-year deal, and then in the 4th year you take a cap hit of 4.8 million to cut him.
Yeah. And again, like it's not a deal I necessarily want the Browns to have done, but they need production at linebacker. Like, you know,
They really do.
It's so tough, and you know, it's a completely different situation than I don't even know why this just popped in my head, but maybe because I was also watching a little bit of the Steelers today and like seeing Joe Hayden still out there, and like that was another one, like just an unforced error of where you just didn't have to let that guy go. And they just let him go for nothing. And the Steelers were just like, okay, cool, thanks. And he's been starting there for how many years now? 7 years, something like, or
well,
6
you know
years?
me, man. I'm a Joe Hayden truther. That was Sashi being cute, trying to save money on a guy, trying to force him. And Joe Hayden, you can talk about how injured he was and his Ritalin suspension and his up and down career, but ultimately he was a team leader too. And
For
teams
sure.
like the Steelers really love guys like that because they're more than just their on-field production, and their on-field production can be good if you take care of all the other things. And you know, in some cases those guys are more valuable to the next team anyway, no matter what. But why is it that the Browns can't seem to identify that next guy? You know, it's because their reputation is so bad, because they're constantly changing, they're lacking stability, and they're changing things all the time, so that when the next Joe Hayden, whoever that might be, hits the market, he's not going to choose Cleveland.
Right.
The Cleveland only gets the choice of the very top dollar. You know, they have to overpay for everybody. Very much the same way Joe Schobert has to go to Jacksonville, because Jacksonville's the only one who's going to give him that contract. The Ravens and the Steelers would never pay a guy like Joe Schobert like that, because they can replace him in the draft and they can find the next guy, or they can wait till somebody gets cut at age 31 and he'll choose to play for a little bit less with the Steelers because he's tired of losing in a place like Jacksonville. It's like the ultimate arbitrage that the Browns never get to take advantage of.
You wonder too, like, who knows what that number would have looked like for Schobert to stay in Cleveland, but he certainly, if you follow his wife on Twitter, they certainly had interest in staying in Cleveland, and Cleveland did not even make them an offer.
Did not make them an offer.
So like, I don't know, like that's tough. Like, you know, you can sit there and you can say like the Browns saw the writing on the wall. They knew what he was going to get on the market, and they weren't going to be competitive, and they didn't want to insult him, you know, insult him, make an offer and see what he says. And who knows, maybe he'll say, look, I'm not going to do that deal, obviously, but let's meet halfway here. I want to stay with Cleveland. I don't know that he would have said that, but why would you not do that for a Pro Bowl linebacker when you have no linebacking depth whatsoever? And like, you can't sit there and say like Mack Wilson is a replacement for Joe Schobert. Like, Mack Wilson is a fine player. Like, I think he's a decent starting linebacker, but he's not a Pro Bowl caliber linebacker. Like, Joe Schobert was a Pro Bowl linebacker. Like,
Pro Bowl alternate.
Yeah, but that's fine. But like,
yeah,
I'll split those hairs, right? Like,
yeah. I always took exception to Derek Anderson being a Pro Bowl quarterback, because 3 guys had to opt out for Derek Anderson to make it, I think.
Yeah, that's it's always a little bit different with the quarterbacks.
Sure.
But I don't know. I've really been struggling with the whole linebacker thing this year, because, and it sort of reminds me a little bit of how I felt about the offensive line last year. I think we talked about this too a little bit in our last podcast. Like, my biggest issue with John Dorsey was the way he treated the offensive line, and he really gutted that offensive line without much of a plan. It seemed like, was the plan to just hope that Drew Forbes pans out? Like, I, there was a lot of head scratching moves there. And my fear is like, I see some of those same mistakes happening with linebacker right now. And now we're seeing the results of that play out right now. So,
but we also
the
haven't
day,
seen their best plan yet. Obviously they
exactly.
like Taki, they like Mac Wilson. I guess, we need to give them a chance. Maybe those guys are fast enough that they bridge the gap between the pass rush, and we don't know what they're going for. And ultimately, I look at like what the Jets signed CJ Mosley for.
Mm-hmm.
And would I love to have CJ Mosley? Yeah, but it's a loser move. You got to be able to draft and develop. By the time you're paying CJ Mosley $85 million over 5 years, it's like,
yeah, it's the same thing with Jacksonville and Schobert. Like, that move makes no sense for Jacksonville. Like, I don't really understand what they were going for, and they gutted everybody else on that defense. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, I don't know where they're going with that. So it's the same kind of thing. And like, the Browns didn't want to be that kind of a team, right? And that's probably why they didn't do it. But my issue with it more is that they didn't even make an offer. That it was just like, you know what, you're just not in our plans. And it's like, well, okay, what is our plan? It's Mac Wilson and Taki and Jacob Phillips. You hope these guys can develop, sure, absolutely. But I don't see, when I watch those guys play, like, I don't see the impact Pro Bowl type player there. Like, Mac Wilson, I think, can be a sturdy player. I got decent hopes for him to be, a reliable guy that plays linebacker for, quite a few years. But I don't see that upper end, that ceiling for him that I think you need to really be a competitive championship caliber defense.
And you can't take care of every issue in one off season. And the Browns did draft Delpit, who unfortunately got hurt. They have really invested in the secondary. So it's you can't do everything. No team can do everything. And so even Andrew Berry deserves some time. He's still kind of swallowing. There's some guys left over from when he was here last time, but he wasn't the decision maker. And now he's got 2 years of John Dorsey drafts to swallow and figure out as well. Not to mention the fact that the idea is that he and Stefanski will be a battery. They'll be working together and developing their long-term strategy. All right, hypothetical time. This is a conversation we got into on Twitter with Jake Burns and Bodie from Waiting for Next Year. There's no bigger apologist or fan or whatever for Lamar Jackson than Bodie.
Yeah.
And we just got into one of these conversations that obviously is tinted by the fact that we follow the Browns, but as much potential as Lamar Jackson had, as good as his work ethic is, I think that there are 20 teams where he is an utter failure. He's not given a chance. He busts out. We've seen it too many times in Cleveland with otherwise good players just being on their third head coach in 4 years, like Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
And I think maybe you and I talked about it. If you flip flop Baker and Lamar, Baker Mayfield is one of the best, if not the best, quarterback in the AFC North, and Lamar Jackson is gonzo. He's a bust. If he starts with Hugh Jackson and company and then gets the Freddie Kitchens treatment, you think Lamar Jackson is anywhere close to being Lamar Jackson today?
I believe it to my core that if those picks are switched, that Lamar Jackson is not the league MVP. He is not this transcendent player that he is for Baltimore. It kills me so much. I hate it like so much. The amount of jealousy and envy that I feel towards Baltimore and what that organization is from top to bottom. That franchise is everything you could aspire to be as a franchise. Like, that's what I want the Browns to be. And I don't like if Lamar Jackson was not going to be the savior for the Browns under with the way things played out with the Browns in terms of cycling through coaches and coordinators. Like that doesn't work. Like it does damage. And you can't tell me that if you watch Baker Mayfield, you can't tell me that he's has not regressed as a result of all of that change, that has not impacted his play on the field. He is not the same quarterback that he was when he first stepped on the field. Like, and I know some people will say, well, the Jets, when he stepped on the field for that Jets in that first game, they didn't have any tape on him. That his rookie year, nobody had tape on him. Well, after a few games, they did have some tape on him. And he still set a record, an NFL record, rookie record for touchdowns. He was electric. He had so much confidence. The way he played, he had no fear. He would just step back. He was decisive. He was accurate. He was everything you want in a quarterback. And as time went and the Browns started switching through all the coaches and coordinators, like you just saw this slow, gradual slide as he lost his confidence. He started to overthink things. He was hesitant. The accuracy has begun to slide. Like all of these things that happen, like some of them might be Baker's fault. I'm not saying that, he doesn't have any blame in this, I guess, but I'm just saying this is not a system that is conducive to developing a franchise quarterback. And you cannot tell me that if Lamar Jackson would have been in here or Patrick Mahomes, that if you put Patrick Mahomes on the Cleveland Browns, that he is the same guy and that the Browns win the Super Bowl last year. Like, no, that's not how this works. What do the Chiefs and the Ravens have in common? And that is just rock solid franchises. They have stability, leadership, from year in to year out what they are running.
And it's not exactly the same either. The Chiefs solidified their plan when they brought in Andy Reid. The Ravens, I think, are more front office driven, although their coach is nothing to sneeze at. Right. So they even do it different ways. Sure, I always consider the Steelers to be a little bit more ownership driven, ownership then front office and coach.
I mean, obviously, but when you give it
solid.
Yeah, when you give those guys that kind of stability, like you just can't. Like we could sit here, we could talk about all these teams. Like it's not that complicated. Like that stability matters, and the Browns are the complete opposite of that. Like it's such a disaster. What
even the Bengals did a mediocre job of stability, but their stability paid off more than what the Browns have been through. Obviously,
I mean Marvin Lewis made the Bengals a decent NFL franchise. Like they weren't a top tier. They weren't really Super Bowl contenders or anything like that. But they made the playoffs. A few years, they were competitive in games. Like that stability mattered to that organization, and they were able to go from a Carson Palmer to an Andy Dalton, and they were able to go through multiple quarterbacks because they had that foundation, and the Browns just haven't had that, and that's why it's so important. Like we can say,
and you can say what you want about Andy Dalton, but they achieved with him, not like the ultimate goal, but it wasn't the worst experience ever.
But you can't tell me when you watch the Browns how many quarterbacks the Browns have had over the years that we wouldn't take an Andy Dalton term. Like I would give me those Bengals years.
Well, could have been Browns. Andy Dalton.
Yeah, and I just I go back to like when you said like the Browns can't fix this, like the linebacking issue or the entire roster issue in one season. They can't. But sometimes that's all you get with the Browns. Like sometimes you only get 1 year. Like, you think about like, even
so
John
sad.
Dorsey. What did John Dorsey get? 2 years?
Yep.
Like John Dorsey got 2 years. That's all. Like, you can say what you will about his faults or whatever, but a guy as respected as John Dorsey, a guy that's done this as much as he has, he only got 2 years, and without any of these. I'm getting tired of saying the word stability. I'm trying to
wait, can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah,
there's a lot of discussion about how bad Dorsey was now. And it's like, to your point, he only had 2 years. It was never a 2-year plan. Nobody comes in with a 2-year plan, and nobody's going to hit on all their stuff, and they're going to have to supplement with free agents and everything else. And maybe what he did and being part of hiring Freddie Kitchens was fireable, but you didn't, like, when we talk about maximizing Andy Dalton in Cincinnati, we should also be talking about maximizing a front office and maximizing a coach, and we don't maximize anything because we don't give anything enough time.
Exactly. And you know, I'm not a guy that's going to sit here and say Dorsey was faultless or anything like that. Like, he made mistakes and things I didn't agree with, but I really do feel like he did not have to be fired. Like, I really feel that. And as much as I like what the Browns did, like, I like the Barry Stefanski, DePodesta, I like the tandem. Like we've got everybody on the same page, and I'm just crossing my fingers that we give them time to develop that foundation. Like, that's the stuff I want. But like, John Dorsey didn't have to be fired yet. Like, certainly not. Like, the Freddie Kitchens hire was obviously a disaster, and he made some bad moves. And I just talked a little bit ago about my frustration with what he did with the offensive line. But he transformed this roster. Like, he took an 0-16 team and turned it into a team that had real NFL talent at quite a few positions. And I liked some of the things even that they did with the draft, and things that you might think, you know, in hindsight, like, you might think Myles Garrett was a no-brainer, but Myles Garrett wasn't a no-brainer. And, you know, I even liked, like, you know, we'll see what happens with the Baker Mayfield thing, but I liked the fact that, you know, he didn't go with the Mitch Trubisky, like, prototypical size that you need at a quarterback. Like, he saw what he liked, like, and he went with it. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, he was operating his program and doing his thing. And who knows, if he would have had more time, who knows how, you know, how much more he would have kept transforming the roster and where the team would have ended up. I'm just saying, like, he didn't even have a chance. John Dorsey didn't even have a chance. And so that's why I'm so scared of, like, anything going bad this season. And that's what, go right back to our very first question. Was this a must win for the Browns? Like, if the Browns lose to the Bengals and everything starts falling apart, people are going to start panicking because they know their neck is on the line, even though that shouldn't be. They know with Jimmy Haslam, like, their neck would have been on the line. And that's when people panic and everything starts to get amplified and worse than it has to be. And so I just want everything to be just even keel this year. Like, let's realize this is year one of this program. Let's just let this year play out. Let's see what happens. Take the good, take the bad, let it happen. Let's see where we're at. Give them a couple years to try to develop things and bring in all of their guys and have a few drafts, and let's give these guys 3 or 4 years. Like, let's just try and operate like a real NFL franchise. And then maybe we can entertain talk of, well, if you would have drafted a different quarterback, he would have been better in Cleveland. Because then I'll listen to that conversation. But you cannot tell me that Lamar Jackson would be the same guy in this Cleveland franchise. You can't convince me of that.
No, although I go back to that 2017 draft, and I wonder if Sashi Brown would still be here if he'd just taken Garrett and then Deshaun Watson, or Garrett and then Mahomes. You know, those were the next 2 quarterbacks. Instead, you know, he messes around through the rest of the first round with Peppers and Njoku, and then takes Deshaun Kaiser, who is thrust into, like, Deshaun Kaiser. Deshaun Kaiser could very well have been our Andy Dalton if he's given 2 years to just sit around. Like,
maybe, like,
you don't start Deshaun Kaiser, who, you know, his own college coach said anyway, we're talking about Deshaun Kaiser. I don't want to do that. I just don't want to do that. So let's finish the podcast with let's talk about some video games. All right. I know you're a gamer.
Yep.
I'm more of a casual gamer, or have been, although now that my kids are getting older, I'm kind of getting back into it a lot more because it's something I can do with them. So all the next gen consoles are announced. are you going Xbox? Are you going PS5? Are you going to wait a little bit? Are you trying to get in on that pre-order? What's your thought process on this thing? Because I've been thinking about it,
Yeah.
and I was gonna like try and get a pre-order in for the PS5, and then I was like, my kids love the Switch. I'm kind of a PC guy. There's no rush.
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways of looking at it. So when people ask me like, should I go Xbox or PlayStation? My first question is, do you have other friends who play? And if so, what do they play? And buy whatever system
The
they
network
play.
effect.
That should be your first consideration.
Although with Fortnite, it doesn't really matter. But yeah,
Right. And I would love to get to a point where more games have full crossplay where, where certainly you could buy whatever platform you want to buy. But so that's sort of my first thing. But if that's not a factor for you, if you don't play multiplayer games or you don't have a lot of friends who play, then the question really becomes what you want out of your video game system, and how you like to play video games. Like, so the Xbox has the Game Pass, which is it's Netflix for video games, and it's brilliant, and it is the best deal in gaming you can possibly get anywhere. Like, so you pay a monthly fee and you have access to an enormous library of games on Xbox. And what's cool is they even have it where they have a PC version as well, and so you can even cross save a lot of those games into the PC environment as well. And so like if you're a guy who just likes to play a lot of different games and try a lot of different games, like the Xbox is probably the system for you. I also like a lot of the multimedia features, like the Xbox functions a little bit better as a multimedia player, in my opinion. However, if you're the person,
the PS4 is a little bit rough in
yeah,
terms of being a media player.
yep. However, if you're the person who likes these landmark games, like single player experience, we're talking like God of War, Spider-Man. I'm drawing a blank. I mean, there's tons of them. Last of Us.
Everything other than Halo.
Yeah, these are all like the PlayStation exclusive titles are incredible. And so I've always been well, I shouldn't say always. I grew up a PlayStation gamer through PS1 and PS2. Then I took a little break from video games for a few years, and then when I decided I wanted to get back in, all my friends were playing Xbox, so I went Xbox so I could play with them. Today, I play almost exclusively PC, and then I have a Switch as well that I use mostly for on the go. So I think I'm going to sit out this one to begin with. I don't think I'm going to pre-order anything. If I did, though, I might even go. I would be really tempted. There's a part of me that would still want to get a PlayStation, even though all my friends play on Xbox, because I want to play those titles. Like, I'm so bummed about missing out on God of War, and even like Final Fantasy VII, the remaster they just put out looked incredible, and I couldn't play that. That's coming to PC, so eventually I'll be able to play it.
So
but
there's another thing too, is just that they're going to support that PS4 for a while,
yeah,
and we also know that these system releases after 6 or 8 months usually feature $100 price drop.
yeah,
And so like if you can kind of hang out and you can
for sure.
scratch the itch with your Switch and like the other kinds of things,
And a lot of times they'll do that bundle where they'll bundle it with some of the top games. Like, it comes with these two, PlayStation exclusive titles that you get with it when you buy it, and it's $100 cheaper.
But then there's one other thing that, and I don't know how many of our audience fits into this category, but I had a friend, a few years ago. He didn't have kids and whatever else, and he was saying, "Look, I'm in my late 30s now, and I can afford to do both. So like
Sure.
it's part of what I do, and so I wonder how many people are out there not making the choice and buying
There is
both.
a lot of people. There is a lot of people, that I follow on Twitter that are really into video games that are they'll just buy both. Like, they also have a PC. Like, they'll play video games on any platform they can get their hands on. I really like what Microsoft's doing in terms of Like I really like the Series X and the Series S. I like that they have two different platforms depending on, are you a person that really cares about 4K and you really want that native 4K experience, go get that Series X. But if you don't care so much about that, like you can play at 1440 and still get next gen graphics, 60 frames per second with the Series S, and it's priced at $300. It's insane to get a 1440 60 frames next gen system
And then
for three
PS5
hundred
is
dollars
either you're gonna have a drive or you're not, right?
or the digital, right? And I would definitely go digital. I can't remember the last video game I bought in terms of a disc.
See, and
You
I
know,
would
that's
go
not.
drive just because it's the only DVD player I have left in my life.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. Um,
But no, I never
and
play a game on disc. Never.
right, right. Like that's, so it's not a consideration for me. Um, but the other thing that Microsoft's doing too that is really smart is they actually have a package where if you do a Game Pass subscription, they'll break the cost of it, of the Series X or Series S, whichever one you want. They will bundle that or break that into monthly installments.
Like a
Um,
phone.
Correct. And so you're paying for your Game Pass service with with an upcharge of, I don't remember what it is, but like it's it's really, I think it's like $30 a month or something. Like it's really affordable, and I think that's so smart for people who don't want to drop $500 or $300 or whatever it is, who maybe you don't want to drop that right now.
When
It's
you
so
know you're
smart.
gonna keep it that long.
In Microsoft's whole game right now is Game Pass. Like that's their thing. Like they're, and this is a great way to drive even more subscriptions. Like when we talk about the streaming wars, like the streaming wars, yes, it's a war, but Netflix is one. Like Netflix's head start over everybody else in terms of their subscription base is just insane. So like, and Microsoft is doing that right now to the video game world. Like you're going to get to a point where
Well, and to your
when
point, like
everybody realizes,
we knew Disney Plus, we knew Disney wasn't gonna lose, but
right,
they weren't gonna swallow up Netflix. It was gonna be
right,
it was gonna be and not or.
yep, yeah, because you can't, they just can't do it. You can't, not quickly, you're not going to break apart that head start that Netflix has in subscription base. And that's what Microsoft's doing right now. Like there's going to come a time where people are like, man, why did people ever buy video games? Like I really believe that. Like I really think the subscription model is where video games are going to go. And eventually everybody's going to be subscribing to a service, and Microsoft's head start is just going to be so massive. And eventually they're going to start developing first party titles as well. Just like Netflix started doing Netflix originals, you're going to start seeing Microsoft start to put out some of those first party titles as well, I think, to compete with the Sony exclusives. And I'd love a perfect world, like I said, where you'd have crossplay and none
Well,
of this
hang
would
on a
matter.
second.
But
So very much like Netflix and Amazon Prime, they're just gonna intercept the developer, and they're gonna buy it when it's in development, and they're gonna slap the Microsoft label on it
which they're
and make
already
it
doing.
yeah.
They're buying studios right now. They're basically buying studios right now and saying, well, rather than selling this game, then we're just going to put it in our Game Pass
It's
library.
brilliant.
And so and as they're doing this, they're just amassing a larger and a larger collection of studios, and that's development power. And they'll figure it out eventually on how to do all that. Like so, right now, like they lack like the blockbuster title. Like every year, the game of the year is almost always a Sony exclusive title, it seems like, but or a Nintendo exclusive. But I think what Microsoft is doing is saying, well, we lost that battle in the last gen. I don't know what the sales totals were or whatever, but when it came to Xbox One versus PS4, like Sony won that one in terms of the games, but Microsoft has completely overhauled their business model, and I think it's so smart, and it's it's one of the most gamer friendly developments that's happened in a very long time. Like we live in a time when microtransactions were becoming like this thing that were taking over video games, and they were so toxic to gamers. Like the microtransaction economy is so bad for gamers. Like EA has ruined Madden and FIFA. Like with their model. And along comes Microsoft and is like, no, we're going to throw all this out, and like we're doing this subscription model. It's so smart.
Well, and even Fortnite, I now have two kids who play Fortnite.
Yep.
Every time there's a new season, that's
to get that Game Pass, or
two
Battle
battle
Pass.
passes. Yeah,
Yep.
it drives me bananas.
Yep.
But it, versus we never had to pay $60 or $70 for the game. So,
Right.
and as long as it's a season at a time, I'm kind of okay with it. But you're right, those like nickel and dime you every time you load up the game, and that stuff is just the worst. EA, if you look at the online ratings for Madden 2021, it's a disaster. Atrocious. People hate it.
You literally
I bought it. The game is awful.
Right. But the thing is, like, but like you buy Madden or you buy FIFA, like you won't practically can't play that version of the game. Like you have to pay more money to get the game and to turn these teams into what you want them to be, and to play the game the way they want you to. Like it is so bad for gamers. Like they spit in the face of their customers so hard with the way they do that, to the point that like I don't even play those games anymore. Like I refuse to give EA money anymore. I'm so like against all of that. So for me, like I really like what Microsoft is doing with their plan. I think it's so gamer friendly. It's an affordable price. It's sort of like you and I talk all the time with Spotify. Like I am happy to pay my Spotify subscription every month and have access to all of this music, right? Like it's the best.
You and I are the only ones in the world who say that they should be charging us double.
Absolutely, and I would happily pay double, because I get the value out of it. And that's the same thing with the Game Pass that Microsoft is doing. It's such incredible value.
Andrew, I pay for the family plan now on Spotify. And the fact that my son Ben like is creating his own playlists and putting stuff together, and then my son Will, there was like some pop song that he loved. He wrote down the name, he added to a playlist. Like
awesome.
It's worth double or triple what they charge me.
Absolutely. Like it is so friendly to music fans. It's so listener friendly, and that's where I want to see video games get back to being gamer friendly as well. And they haven't been that for a while. Like it's become very anti-gamer, and it's just refreshing to see Microsoft say, you know what, no, we're not even going to do that. And like, so they're putting out, these prices are incredible on these systems. They're very powerful. Like these are getting very close to PC power. In fact,
if they ran Windows, this would be the greatest desktop PC in the world.
Like a lot of people's gaming PCs cannot play 1440 60 frames. Like there's a lot of PCs that can't do that, certainly not for like new titles. And
when I price out a workstation every year for my business, and a cheap workstation is $2,500. An expense, you can spend as much as you want, but I would say the average is probably $3,000 to $3,500. And if you look at the video memory and the video power, I wonder, has anybody ever hacked an Xbox into like being a PC and running Windows?
I'm pretty sure that is a thing that people do.
It'd be loud because that fan gets cooking, but it'd be better than most PCs I've got running in my office.
Yeah. And so, when you look at the pricing on that, and then you can just do this subscription model, play all these games you want. And I mean, we're not talking games that have been out for a year. Like we're talking new releases like that are coming out. Like, one of the games I'm really into is Destiny 2, and their new add-on to their game comes out in November, the same time that Xbox comes out, and you get that on Game Pass right away. So if you're a Game Pass subscriber, boom, the rest of the game is free to play. The new campaign add-on is already included in Game Pass. Like that's incredible for gamers. Like it's such a cool business model that you can just get new releases, new titles. You play it for a week. If you don't like it, you're not out anything. Move on and play another game. Like I really, really like where they're going with that. So that's my draw. So when it comes to the console thing, like my heart is with Microsoft, but I'm still love the Sony first party titles. Like I love the Sony exclusive
I
games,
think
and
I think you need to buy the new Xbox and then you need to buy a used PS4 from somebody.
there we go. It's not a bad way to do it.
Um, all right, so
But I,
last but
but
not
I'm
least,
also eyeing these Nvidia, the new Nvidia cards. So maybe I'll just stick with PC and forego everything else, anyways. But
yeah, I love PC gaming. I was just a long
yeah,
time mouse and keyboard first person shooter guy, so I don't play a first person shooter on a console.
yeah.
All right, last but not least, what do you play on your Switch? What do you do on the Switch?
So one thing I do is pretty much every year I do a Breath of the Wild playthrough, like Zelda Breath of the Wild. That's probably my favorite video game of all time. Like I love that game, and what's fun about that game is because it's so open. There's no structure to how you have to play that game. So every year I'll just start up a playthrough, and this time I'll head west instead of the game wants you to go east. I'll go west first and explore out there or whatever. So I've been doing that, and the other thing that I've been doing is so my favorite video game series of all time is Borderlands, and they recently put out Borderlands 1, Borderlands 2, and Borderlands prequel all on the Switch. And so, of course, even though I played Borderlands 1 on the original Xbox 360, I played it on Xbox One, I played it on PC. So, yep, I bought it on Switch, and I was just on vacation last week, and the cottage we were staying at, the Wi-Fi went out, so we had no internet there, and we used up all of our cell phone data, and we don't have unlimited, and so we were sitting there like we didn't want to burn through any more data, and so it was like, well, what am I going to do in my free time? I started playing Borderlands, and so did yet another playthrough of Borderlands, but so like right now that's primarily what I'm playing, but yeah, I really liked Breath of the Wild. I liked Mario Galaxy a lot. I'm really looking forward to playing the Mario 3D All Stars that's coming out. Because I didn't have a N64, so I missed
I didn't
a lot of
either.
those. I missed a lot of those games.
We
So,
had
or as the
one in
Mario Galaxy,
one of my
I
college apartments. We had an N64,
yeah,
and so I got a little bit of it there, but I
that's how
didn't
it was
love it
for me
very much.
too. But I said Mario Galaxy before I met Mario Odyssey. Galaxy is part of the 3D All Stars, but yeah. So that's kind of what I do with it. What do you play it, or do you just your kids play it?
So the Switch, I mean, we had a Switch. That one actually broke. My one of my kids got a Switch Lite for Christmas, and now we have
Oh yeah,
two Switch Lites,
yeah,
um, which are it's actually better not to have detachable controllers. We never used it as a console, never
yeah,
plugged it. It was always a portable machine. So
yeah,
having detachable controllers was actually just another point of failure.
yeah.
But no,
Makes sense.
I never get to touch either one of them. Nope,
Yeah,
not even close. The
yeah,
worst part for me is being a parent with parent mode, trying to keep all the data straight. And the biggest pain in the butt was when the Switch broke. I did everything I could to try and get it repaired. I shipped it out. I did all these different things. It could not be repaired. If you don't have it and you can't power it on, you can't deregister it. And
mm,
so trying to get a bricked switch deregistered so that I can get all the data
yeah.
transferred over, it's like I gave up. I
Let's
gave
just
up.
say that kind of stuff is not Nintendo's strong point.
No, it's
Even
so bad.
even in terms of like, so like the Switch comes out in like this modern generation, and like there wasn't even cloud saves for it. So like if you had a Breath of the Wild, like you could have put 300 hours into that game, and if something happened to your console where you weren't able to get that game save off of there, like it's just gone. Like that's those 300 hours are just gone. And now they, with the Nintendo Online, they at least do have some ability to have some cloud saves. But like I would say, like Nintendo is also excellent at first party titles. Obviously, like I mean, that's what they do, and it's great. Nintendo is, endlessly excellent at just pure entertainment. Their games are just fun, but they are terrible at like the whole operating this in a modern like console environment.
Why have we not had a Zelda movie franchise yet?
That's a good question.
For the
It's
love
actually a
of
really
God,
good question. Yeah,
we
or
should have. I mean, if Lord of the Rings has a market, Zelda should have
yeah.
had a market by now. Mario
Netflix, where are
Brothers
you?
was,
Give me a series. Give me a
oh my
series.
God, how many people would subscribe just for the Zelda series?
Oh, so many people. It would be huge. I mean, those games are massive. Like they have such a huge following.
We're talking what, 4 generations now? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
That's
insane.
crazy. Yeah.
All right, Andrew, this was fun. Next time, I wanted to talk about Dikembe too, but we're over an hour now. So
Oh, yeah.
nobody, if you made it
Uh,
this far, thank you. Thank you so
yeah.
much.
Everybody's like, well, what happened to Dikembe Mutombo?
Yeah, no, Dikembe is a band from Florida that Andrew and I
Yeah.
could probably spend another hour talking about. But
Yeah.
thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you next time. It's been the waitingfornextyear.com podcast.